Wow, that's
But,
impressive.
since the Roth interview, I did get to see her one more time. And, do you have our website?
I do. I think you saw her when she was in blue. Was that the second time?
Yeah, the second time, was at Union Center there just north of Cincinnati. And so I got to share with her again, as that little story says. And that's just a short amount of stuff that I shared there just basically for the website.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened a week ago this past Friday.
Wow. And she recognized you right away?
Oh, yeah, recognized me completely. Just real easy and just like somebody walking into the church or, if I'm standing in a store and somebody knows me, when she, walked past, and I think I put in the little story there, my daughter went with me this time, and when Sarah was, waving at everybody, as you see them, have to wave to the crowd and do all the facial stuff and the high,
Uh-huh.
the high stuff that, everybody on the left and on the side of the risers, and when she saw me, she pulled her hand down, from waving at everybody, and pointed right at me and said, "Hey, you,
Oh, how
how
neat.
are you?" And I went, "Hey," like that. My daughter said, "Dad, she really knows you." And I said, "Yeah, she really does." I mean, even having been, somebody that's going to share, you would think that, well, I think that I'm the kind of person, I'm big enough, and I think the amount of time that we spent, the first time, I knew she would have it, but I mean, it was just a real exciting thing, knowing that it just wasn't something that she let go in wanting out.
Right.
But she just seemed it that day so well. And
Wonderful.
so that just was icing on the cake, knowing that she honored the Lord enough to, to see that I'm just not another face in the crowd or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Going back to the first time that you saw her, you were going through like the security channels, which I was watching I think she was in Florida. She was surrounded by security. Do you think that was an angel that got you through those channels?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was an awesome thing what God did, to get me all the way up, front and center.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to that with Dr. Roth, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So when you saw her again, there was that connection. When you're with Christians, you have that connection. You felt that with her?
Oh, yeah. She's much more connected. I mean, even as much as what the television shows,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, you being a writer, and we watch stuff like this, you can definitely see that they downplay and they make McCain look like a sick old man.
I know.
Basically, I mean, they put every scar and every, even on the face where he's had that muscle damage,
Mm-hmm.
from facial, that spot, that cancer that he had on his left cheek. I mean, if there's one little place that they can turn the picture to make him look bad, they do that.
Absolutely.
And but he was very exciting, and it seems like he's got some real new life about him spiritually.
Yes.
But she, as much as she comes on the television as a real person who is a real point guard on the basketball team, and
Mm-hmm.
excited and pumped, that energy level still can't even be described. I mean, she's so energized by everything that's going on, but the receptivity of her, taking what I was able to share with her,
Mm-hmm.
and running with it, was very, very visible and evident that day.
Did you get to hear her interview with Dr. Dobson?
No, I haven't done an interview with him. Have you heard of anything that he said about the story? I've heard from like a lot of people around me, but I've not been interviewed by him.
Okay, I was curious if you got to hear the one he had with Sarah.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'll have to send it to you. In it, he talks about the intervention of God, and he's been praying for her, and the attack from the media. It was really interesting, and she hangs in there. She said, "You know what? I feel the prayers. God's with me." And when you said that, I was like, wow, because he had just said that.
Yeah. Yeah, she really knows people are praying. And see, that's one thing that when I talked to her the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and on the website, it shows the red picture, she's wearing like a red
Yes.
coat or top or whatever. But during that time, when I gave her the message, it was just so directed, and she received it, and she cried. But when I got to share with her last Friday, I was letting her know the amounts of people that we're hearing from.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, Sarah, there are millions and millions. I said, don't even listen to one day, Sarah.
That's right.
And I said, it's going to get even worse, just like I told you a month ago.
Yep.
And she looked at me and she said, I know it is. And she winked at me. And I said, look, it's going to even get worse between, the next 2 weeks. It's going to be to where you're going to just want to, just take the down and go home, basically. But I said, you're going to have to fight this thing. And I told her about being a bulldog. And when I said that, she, snapped right up. And she was standing there, doing autographs. And then she would wave a little bit. And she'd look back at me. And I was having a conversation. And most of it was personal. But I mean, then somebody would just, a security guard would come and stick something there.
Uh-huh.
That a senator, a state rep, or an auditor, mayor, or whatever,
Uh-huh.
needed stuff. So, I mean, they just would quickly, she would sign, and then her eye would come right back in contact with me. And so, in the midst of all of this, though, she continued to listen, and every time that I tell her about people praying, I said, look, it's not a small bunch of people out there. That there are millions and millions and millions praying. You don't
Yes,
even
there
know.
are.
And she said, well, you tell everybody that I said, thank you for the prayers, and I know they're praying, and I know that's what's getting us through. So that's how she talked.
That's wonderful. Wow, that's great. There's some people saying that you pastor a church, or they're saying that people, yeah, and they can't find you, and they're saying, oh, he doesn't exist. What would you say to them, or what can you tell them to prove that you are real?
The thing about our church, we're actually, see, everybody's going, when they Google something, they Google Mark Arnold,
Yes.
Lebanon, Ohio, where the story happened.
Right.
And I actually live like 20 miles from where Lebanon is. I don't live in Lebanon, I live in Fairfield, which is just north of Cincinnati.
Okay.
And so, then our little church, it's in a place called Monroe.
Okay.
And so it's called Life Covenant Christian Church. And we're affiliated with the Church of God out of Cleveland, Tennessee.
Okay.
So that's very similar. People that always want to know, like the Assemblies of God and the Church of God, that's more of the Bible Belt kind of flow of stuff. But we're in the charismatic faith side of it as well. So, I mean, we strongly believe in prayer and really, standing up for the rights. And, we're a pro-life, taking our stand, and
Absolutely.
I'm one of
Yep.
those pastors, I don't really care, and I don't mean it in a bad way. That's not meaning, that I disregard people's thoughts or whatever, but I don't try to force it down anybody, but at the same time, I'm not a silent pastor that just says, well, just vote the Bible and try to figure out what I say. I get up there and let them know, basically, we better go after what God after. There's several things in the Word that really shows you God, and when He lays His cards on the table, and that's, number one, He said, anybody that blesses Israel will be blessed. Anybody that curses Israel is going to be cursed.
You're right.
And all of us go through the, busted, broken, disgusted, weary, been there, done that kind of thing. And I like being blessed a whole lot more than being cursed.
Yes,
every
for
one of us
sure.
has had to go through the curse a time or two until finally we wake up and we go, hey,
Right.
let's just get out of Big Ten and go back home. So the bottom line is, that's the way that I preach and teach our people. And I just let them know, if you don't like my stand, or if you don't believe in what I'm saying or doing, at least just go home and pray. And as much as I've got to